So another splitting and weaving technique I like to talk about, it's a music learning technique. I call it sandbags. And this really comes up when you think, I'm starting to get this piece down, and then you go to perform it, and it totally falls apart. And you're like, maybe I'm not as good at that piece as I thought I was. And part of what you realize is that it's a really unfortunate realization, but you need to be a lot better than you initially think you need to be in order to be solid in a performance. And part of the way that you get there, even after you start to feel like you've got it, but you really don't have it as well as you need to, is you make it more difficult than it needs to be. So there's a couple of tricks that I've come up with. You can come up with any tricks you want that fit your situation, but the idea is you throw some challenges in to make something a little harder than it really needs to be in order to be better at it than you need to be so that you're actually as good as you need to be. I mean, this is just kind of like the reality of our psychology of performances. To really challenge yourself to be solid, you push yourself further than you need to. So a couple of sandbag techniques I like to use are, like hyperspeed, playing something faster than you need to. Once you think you've got, a piece of music, once you think you've got a piece at speed, try to play it 20% faster. So see right there, that shift fell apart at that new speed. So I'll break it down in small pieces, but and then try the whole piece. See, that time I hit the transition. And I did that by pushing myself faster than I needed to. And you can do that with anything you want. But the general idea is that if you can play it faster than you need to, you can actually play it as fast as you need to. So that's hyperspeed. Another one is what I call blindfolding. This one is particularly useful if you want to be focused on audience communication. So practicing communicating with an audience is something you have to do on your own. But if you're alone in the practice room and you really want to make sure that you know a piece well enough that you can let go or not be glued to the page the whole time, see if you can do it without looking. Literally put a blindfold on or close your eyes and see. If you can do it without looking, you know it well enough to be able to look at the audience and not focus on your hands. And a lot of times what you realize is you can play a piece while you're staring at it, but you can't while looking away. And a lot of times this kind of merits, you start practicing this way and you realize you have to kind of really learn how to let your senses guide you. You have to start to learn how to feel, where is that fret? You have to feel for the fret. And you become much more locked into your senses. So you take more time to fix little details like that, but you learn how to do it internally from how things feel rather than how things look. And that is a way to get to know a piece better. It can often be a very difficult thing because it's really shifting the way that you approach things, but it really improves your performances a lot to be able to do that. So the blindfolding sandbag is another really good one. Another one I really like to do is just so we call this the Matchstick Game. I have a whole thing I use to teach music called the Matchstick Game, and it's a very complex game. There's a lot of different types of matchsticks, but it comes from the idea that one of my music teachers told me that Mozart used to have little matchsticks on his music stand, and he'd take a piece of music, a passage he was working on, and he'd saw away at it. If he nailed it, he'd move a matchstick over. He'd saw away at it again. If he nailed it, he'd move a matchstick over. Saws away, drops a note, all the matchsticks go back. And the idea is if you really want to know you're ready for Carnegie Hall, you have to be able to play the piece 10 times in a row without dropping any notes, and then you know it's secure. And I realize I can't do that with almost anything, at least not at this telling. But that's a really good sign. If you know you want to perform and you want it to be solid, that's a much higher level of proving it. So if you really want to push yourself with the Matchstick Game, you just say, okay, take a little passage. Okay, I don't think I drop any notes there. I could be fussy about some other things like string crossings, but I'll just take drop notes. Let me try it again. Okay, again. Okay, again. See, I feel like I'm actually doing that fairly well in terms of like hitting all the notes, but there's some string crossings that I can kind of hear. There's some buzzy on them that I don't really want. What I tend to do is I tend to think, okay, how many things do I want to fuss about? Do I want to fuss about the phrasing? Do I want to fuss about like how it feels expressively? Do I want to fuss about drop notes or rhythms or whatever? I decide how many qualifiers do I want to have in there, and then how many matchsticks do I want to get to? And if you're like, okay, you have to have tone, rhythm, like all the qualifiers in the world, and you have to get it 10 times in a row without screwing up. It's like, you're punishing yourself a little bit, but it's something you can build up a bit at a time. You can do fewer matchsticks with fewer elements and gradually push yourself as far as you want. But this idea of just like being very clear about the fact that if you can't name like 7 aspects of the music, like the pitch and the rhythm and the tempo and the articulation and the dynamics, if you can't identify all those elements and nail them again and again and again, if you want to do a high-level performance, it's like unless you're willing to repeat it that many times, you don't really have it yet. Now, maybe all that doesn't matter to you. That's fine. But whatever level you want to be secure at, in terms of repetition, you use that as your standard. You use the 10 matchstick, no missed notes as your kind of standard to see how well do I know this, and you're just ready to repeat it as many times as you need to, which might be hundreds of times more than you want to. But, if you want to play Carnegie Hall,